All right. Welcome to another edition of, I'm just going to simply call it beep test training now, since that's what I'm aiming for. See how well I can improve my beep test performance over a 6-week period with beep test specific workouts. Today was another measurement day, so running the beep test, see how far I can go, and then I followed up with zone 2 cardio afterwards. My situation, just because I'm at the gym and I don't want to pound my legs too much with running, I like to use the Airdyne bike for my zone 2 cardio. But if you want to go for a run, want to use the elliptical, go for a swim, rower, anything that's going to just be very cyclical in nature, low to moderate intensity, that's what you do following the beep test. So in my case, I started this one about 5 minutes after I completed the beep test. Not saying that's what you got to do. That's just what I'm doing. Because of I'm always on a time crunch. So if you want to take a longer rest time in between, or even just do beep test in the morning, zone 2 cardio in the evening, by all means. I just got to be a little more efficient with my time. So today's performance wasn't the best. I would say it was my worst, but tying my worst. Yeah, so I started off at 12.5. I think the second one was 12.8. I think last week was 12.3. And then this week, today, 12.3 as well. I'm on the 4th week of the program, so 2 more after this one. And the idea behind this program is to, of course, level up by the end of 6 weeks. Personally, I've been stuck in that 12 range. So I've been anywhere from 12.3 on the low end to 12.8 on the high end. Haven't really budged, but I pretty much know why I haven't been budging. It's not for lack of trying. The work is putting in the work, but I'm not recovering well in between. Sleep has been pretty crappy the last few weeks, especially the past week or so for myself. I'm maybe getting 4 hours, 5 hours at best a night, maybe the occasional 6. But even if I do get 6 hours, it's interrupted. Interrupted because my youngest has a tendency to wake up in the middle of the night. So yeah, sleep has, I believe, what's holding me back is my recovery. I'm not recovering well in between, and particularly sleep. So, I can do things like make sure I stay on top of my hydration, make sure I stay on top of my nutrition, which I know those areas, particularly nutrition, I can always do better on, but the biggest factor is sleep. I'm actually kind of surprised. I got to level, to get into 12.3. I was hoping to get to 12, but hell, if I got to 10, I think I would have been happy, just seeing how I've been feeling and how I've been recovering in between. But I did feel like I had to will myself mentally a little bit more today. A little part of me thought that maybe, just maybe, I was going to last a little bit longer on 12. As I was going through level 11, I mean, I was feeling it and I was working for it, but there's something that made me think, perhaps I can get closer to 13 today. But once I got onto level 12 in the first couple laps, especially on the second lap, I made that turn. I just felt slow. I couldn't recover out of that one. So maybe I could have worked harder to catch up to the beep at that point. But I figure cut my losses, stick with what I was at. Maybe I could have gone better, but ultimately it's how much better can I get at the end of 6 weeks? And as you see, since pretty much I got 2 more attempts to try to get to as close to level 14 as possible, but at the very least, if I can get to 13.5, I'd like to get to 13.8. If I can get at least 13.5 after 6 weeks of training, I think I would say I think I'd be happy with that, all things considered. If I was dialing in on all of this, then if I was dialing in on everything that I needed to do well on this program, and I was still stuck on that level 12, I think my motivation would be dropping at that point. But when I consider that I'm not necessarily going all in on this program, I mean, on the training I am. Like I'm working hard during the workouts itself, but all the other things that would help me in trying to be closer to peak performance, I mean, everything else is kind of subpar. So honestly, I'm fine with being where I'm at. I mean, I've peaked at 12.8 so far. I have it in me to do more of that. I know how I do. I just got to make sure I'm feeling more recovered. My recovery in between is actually not too bad. In about 2-3 minutes after I finished the beep test, my heart rate was already dropping below 130. And even the other day, the other workouts I was doing, my recovery in between in terms of heart rate was actually pretty quick. So within the workout, recovery is actually not bad. I'm recovering quite well. But I would say my recovery from workout to workout, and particularly when I'm trying to do my best, my recovery isn't where it needs to be. But like I said, I'm fine with that. Because of circumstances, right? I gotta work with what I got. I can't just tell my boy to sleep throughout the night. I mean, he wakes up in the middle of the night. He wakes up in the middle of the night. That's just what's going to happen. So, c'est la vie. I am curious though, how I do on the Pope hat after 6 weeks of this. Can I still pull off 246 or so? At the very least, be under 250. I like to say yeah. I haven't been doing much strength training though, so I do wonder how much of that would be a factor. But in terms of conditioning, yeah, who knows? Maybe it's still possible that without having done any Pope hat specific stuff for where we at now. It's already November 24. Last Pope hat I ran was early October, so what, almost 6 weeks ago was the last time I ran a Pope hat in full. By the time I attempt it, if I do attempt it again after this beep test program, it'll be about 2 months in between without touching the Pope hat, even just like being on the machine. So I'm kind of curious what my Pope hat would be like without any Pope hat specific training. And for me, I've done the pull pad enough times that I could take a break. And when I get back into it, it'll be second nature in terms of what I got to do. Mentally, it might be a bit different, but wouldn't be that much different compared to what I've been doing preparing for the beep test. Because beep test was, I mean, anytime you're pushing yourself to your limits, it's your mental game that's really going to come into play in terms of what's going to determine how much further, or how much, in the case of the beep test, how much further you can go, or if we're talking pull pad, how much faster you can go. So from a mental point of view, from a mindset point of view, there's going to be a lot of similarities there. And because I already have that background with pull pads, I mean, when things start to get tough, it's not as if it's a surprise. It actually reminds me of something that just happened recently with someone who came and ran their test. They've done a pull pad before, but it's been many years since they've done so. They got their background in terms of training is in CrossFit, and I've actually seen this a lot with people who do CrossFit. Now, this is not a knock against CrossFit. I've seen this with high-level athletes too, where there's this assumption that I'm fit, I can just go in and smash the test. And I'm sure I've talked about this in my other videos, but just because you're fit, it is not a guarantee that you're going to do well or even pass the pull pad. Because preparing for the pull pad, it's like preparing for a sport. It has its own skills, it's got its own strategies. When I talk about skills, first thing that comes to mind is the machine. Because pushing and pulling against that machine, that weight is not staying still for you. The moment you push that handle in or you pull that handle out, it wants to go back. It wants to drop on you immediately. So how do you control that? That's where technique comes in. It's not just about brute strength. But even if you look at the obstacle course, how you jump the hurdles can really affect your performance. You know, whether you're jumping up and over or like an actual hurdler and going straight across. How you pace yourself, that's where the strategy is going to come in. Your pacing on the course is going to affect how you do for the rest of the test, or the machine, or the vault. And speaking of the vault, how smoothly, how efficiently can you get through that station, especially under fatigue? So just because you do CrossFit, just because you played college basketball, college soccer, or even a pro player in the CFL, we've had a few of those guys, it is not a guarantee that you're going to do well, at least not the first time you do the test. If you never touched it before and you just jump straight into it with no experience of how to run the course, how to do the machine, how to do the vault, just because you got that high level athletic ability in another domain doesn't mean it's going to automatically transfer well to the test. Not right off the bat without any experience. So it's good if you are that athlete who's competed at a high level or some kind of competitive level, that is good. You need that. You want that foundation of fitness, but you're going to need to layer it with the specificness of the test as well. Now, whether that's a pull pad, whether that's the pair test, even if it's something like the PFA for RCMP, whichever test that you're doing for your respective agency, that involves more than just how fast can you run, how many push-ups can you do, how many pull-ups can you do, etc. If there's some kind of obstacle course involved or something where there's more than just running and strength stuff, there's a skill component. You gotta learn that skill set. Even for something like the beep test, there's a certain amount of skill with that as well, right? Because once you get to the end, you can't just go off and run to the other side. You have to wait for that beep to go, right? So it's how can you stay disciplined when you get to the end? And part of being disciplined is learning how to time how you get from one end to the other and understanding the rhythm of the beats. How you turn too on the beep test and how you accelerate out those turns. All that's going to factor into your overall performance, not just the fitness side. So for myself today, in terms of my beep test, I'm not hitting my technical side of it. I wouldn't say I've mastered it, but I've done it enough times where I know what I need to do well from a technique point of view. Now it's my fitness that needs that boost, as well as the mental side. And I mentioned earlier recovery, how I'm recovering in between. All of that's going to factor into performance. Again, no matter what test you're doing, beep test, POPAT, prep test, so forth and so forth. If you get into a higher level, like something like the ERT pair, for anyone going for the ERT team, all of that requires fitness as a foundation and high level fitness, ideally, but it's not purely about fitness. Understanding strategy, understanding skill to improve that overall performance, right? To me, performance isn't just your fitness itself. Performance is how you do in the specificness of whatever it is you're doing, right? Even for something like a 5K run, anyone can run a 5K if you just kind of run and cover the distance. But when you're trying to run faster, I mean, that's performance right there. And that also requires a certain kind of skill set, like how well do you pace yourself in order to run fast, but still last long enough so that you still have some kind of kick at the end, right? There's what can look simple on the surface, there can be more complexity to it underneath. So just because you look at something and it looks simple doesn't necessarily mean that it is. Simple does not necessarily mean easy. I like to say that a lot. Simple does not mean easy. I just kind of went off, kind of somewhat all over the place there. But I mean, I started off the story with someone who'd come in for their POPAT test, and they had prior experience, but it had been many years since the last time they'd done something POPAT related, and even then it wasn't a whole lot. And their background was in CrossFit, but just because, as I mentioned, just because you do CrossFit, just because you're a high-level athlete or a competitive athlete, is not a guarantee that you're going to pass if you got no prior experience. I've seen it time and time again. People who come to us who have that high-level fitness, once we layer that skill set on top of the fitness, performance goes through the roof at that point. You know, their first time, they might be doing something like a 4:30 or a 4:45, in some cases over 5 minutes. They then learn what's needed to do well on the machine, how to pace themselves, and suddenly they're dropping 30, 40 seconds off the times, at a minimum 10 seconds. But usually I've seen more than that. It's usually like 15 to 20 at a minimum, at least if you're looking at high level athletes. And that's just from first POPAT to the next POPAT. And then in time, they just keep chipping away to much faster times. So fitness is that foundation. You absolutely need the fitness. Don't rely solely on your fitness. You need to build the skill set on top of it as well. All right, well, I'm coming to the last 30 seconds of my easy zone 2 cardio here. Actually, I wonder what my heart rate's at. Yeah, it's elevated, even though this feels like an easy pace, but I expect it to be elevated because I just ran a beep test not more than 20 minutes ago. Well, I guess not more than half an hour ago. But if you stuck with me up until this point, thank you very much for listening to my musings and my rants. got any questions about, uh, well, in terms of beep test, if you got any questions about the program I'm putting myself through right now, feel free to leave a comment below. I'll do my best to try to get to those comments. Otherwise, you can always email me at marc@rlconditioning.ca. And until next time, take care, y'all.